Hey everybody, Craig Schoettler with MGM Resorts. I'm here with my esteemed colleague and good friend Jason Smith, Master Sommelier. So today is a special edition of Happy Hour. Oddly enough, Jason and I both have culinary backgrounds. He went to CIA in New York, I went to Johnson Wales in Providence. So we know a thing or two around the kitchen, but we got some feedback of viewers wanted to know what pairs better with food, cocktails, or wine. So
and to think that that would even be a question, because everyone knows wine is going to win here.
In 9 times out of 10, I would agree with you. This time, you probably should just
let the viewers decide.
You can throw in the white towel now if you want. You can just wave it and we can be done. But in honor of Cinco de Mayo, we picked tacos. So we've got the reasons between how things pair and why they work. Most times, at least for a cocktail standpoint, I would always agree with, unfortunately, with Jason, that wine most times always pairs better with food than cocktails do for a couple reasons. One being cocktails tend to be higher alcohol. And in order to have that higher alcohol, we have to balance the drink with either sugar, acid, which then we have a too acidic cocktail to pair with the food, or we have bitters, which also doesn't really go well with food as well. But the one thing we do have an advantage that wine does not have is we have the ability to manipulate. So I made pork tacos, and give a little tip that I got from Chef Wes at Bellagio. When you braise the pork shoulder, put a can of Coca-Cola in it. The spices that are in that secret blend, as they reduce and boil down, actually add a lot of complexity to the pork and the actual flavor of it. So a good tip from Chef West. So I've got pork, some sour cream, a little fat, pickled onions. Just took some onions, chopped them up, sprinkled some lime juice over it, chopped cabbage, and then some cilantro on top is my taco. Jason, what did you make?
That sounds delicious, actually. I went with carne asada. So I think beef that's been marinated, lots of flavor in it. I've grilled that, and then I like my tacos the way I like them. This certainly isn't a traditional style. I have sour cream, cilantro, and some shredded cheese. I'm going to squeeze a little lime on top of that. It's the way I like them, and I think they're pretty damn delicious. And wine-wise, what I went with this, I went with a rosé. You know, Craig couldn't have gone more straightforward than a margarita and tacos. It may be Taco Tuesday and Cinco de Mayo, but I thought we were going to stretch ourselves a little bit here.
Oh, right. They call them classics for a reason.
I'm going to go ahead and give this a taste and see how I did here. I did not get this from the pantry. For those of you who have seen some other videos, I actually cooked this one myself. I should say, usually I like my tacos spicier. I'm using Valentina hot sauce. I actually went pretty light because there isn't much sweetness here in the wine.
So you got a rosé. What kind of rosé is it?
Space age rosé, 100% Grenache. You could probably go with a lot of different rosés. This is one that I've really been enjoying. It's fruit forward. It's probably got a hair of sweetness to it. I certainly wouldn't call it sweet like Riesling Spätlese or anything along those lines. Fresh, fruity, easy drinking. Actually goes quite well with the tacos here. It's not going to be one of those pairings that you're going to fall off your chair with, that it's so amazing, but it works well. It's refreshing. Neither one overpowers the other. You get a little taste of each.
That segment of falling off the chair is coming up next.
Wow. Okay.
But when picking the rosé, is the grape blend important? So you said it was Grenache. Mm-hmm. Does that help with the food, the taco, or the meat, or does the grape plany element into it that makes it work better or worse?
Well, Grenache is pretty commonly used for a rosé. It's something that's kind of fresh and fruity and going to jump out of the glass. I wouldn't necessarily say you have to go with a rosé from Grenache. You could, there's lots of rosés. Provence wouldn't use Grenache quite as much. It certainly wouldn't be 100% in most cases. But this is one that I enjoy, and that's the reason I went this direction.
All right, so you ready for the winner?
Let's see now. We'll let the people decide.
So I made a variation on a margarita, and as I had mentioned earlier, we have the ability when we're making a cocktail, unlike when you do wine, you have to open it and pour it. We can manipulate the balance of the drink based on the food that we're doing. So I use Casamigos Blanco tequila, fresh lime juice. Always use fresh if you can. It's going to bring out that acidity and make your mouth salivate and make you want to take another bite of the food. I used agave nectar. So this style of margarita is called a Tommy's margarita. It was made famous by a legend in our industry, Julio Bermejo, in Tommy's Mexican restaurant in San Francisco. So instead of using an orange cordial and sugar, use agave nectar. And then I put a little twist on it. So I put some cilantro into the cocktail because I've got cilantro on the food. So one thing that makes cocktails and food pairings work is we can manipulate it to include flavors that we're going to eat in what we actually drink.
I believe the technical term there is called a bridge. I learned that at CIA. You're welcome.
Bridging, but we'll call it a bridge. And then on the rim, because I'm not a huge fan of salt in my margarita, it's not my liking. So I always do half of a rim. So I salted half of the rim so I can then go back and forth to no salt or salt. But in that salt, I took some dried oregano because it's an ingredient that I use a lot when I make Mexican food. So I have dried oregano, and then I have tahini. Put that in mortar and pestle, ground it up a little bit, added some kosher salt. I like the coarse texture of the salt than using like an iodized salt. And then use that as the rim. So now I've got some flavors of, that bright cilantro, some citrus, undertones of agave that pairs well with the tequila. And then I got a little bit of spice on the rim. So let's see how bad I beat Jason on this pairing.
Well, I'll be honest, as you're giving that a try, it sounds pretty tasty. I wish I had a couple over here. I don't know if you do any delivery service at all, but it's getting hot outside. One of those margaritas would be pretty delicious.
The taco may be better than the margarita.
Whoa, wow. I like the half and half salt idea. Even though I am a salt guy on my margarita, that is a pretty strong play. Craig Schoettler, speechless. Write this date down, folks. Cinco de Mayo, Taco Tuesday, 2020.
I mean, when you look at a taco and a margarita.
Indeed. Well played.
Right.
I think the stretch here going with the rosé is certainly pretty impressive as well. The wine is delicious too, thoroughly quenchable.
It is a better pairing with the salt rim and taco than it is with the out salt rim and the taco. A lot of times salt brings out, flavors, a lot of things, so they pair very, very well together. The one thing that becomes very difficult when you look at pairing cocktails and food is the cocktail still needs to be delicious by itself. The food needs to be delicious by itself, which is typically why wine usually wins in a pairing battle, because you don't want to make the cocktail can't be undrinkable alone, but great with the food. They need to be both delicious independent, but then the sum of both making it better. That's the art of pairing beverages with food.
One thing that I always like to consider is that no matter what you're eating and drinking, you can drink what you like, eat what you like, and you'll usually be quite happy. Obviously, what we're trying to do here is have the sum of the two parts be above each part individually. But I think a lot of people try and work too hard on this pairing wise, and then they're eating something that is just kind of so-so, or drinking something that's so-so. But if you put the two together and it's above and beyond, that's fantastic. But if you're eating and drinking what you like, maybe they don't necessarily go together, you're going to be pretty happy there as well.
Yeah, exactly. And same thing with, when you have a cocktail, you have wine. It's all about enjoying it. Everyone's palate's different. I know that this beat Jason's pairing, but he may think his pairing beat my pairing, but for another day.
I'm pretty happy over here, I'll be honest. Pretty happy. But folks, we must say also, it's great to do this banter with Craig, but we do miss all of you down on the Las Vegas Strip, and we're looking forward to when you can come back and visit us soon.
Again, please be safe. We welcome you back, and as always, the show will go on.